The gentlewoman from Ohio, Ms. Beatty, who is the chair of the Subcommittee on Diversity and Inclusion, is now recognized for 5 minutes.
First of all, let me say thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the witnesses present and on the screen. Thank you for allowing us to have the opportunity to take a look at persistent poverty in America in those areas as cited in the hearing. Let me also say thank you. I'm sorry our chair of the larger committee is not here, but certainly we did hear from the Biden administration, and most of us will know no one has been a bigger advocate for housing than Congresswoman Maxine Waters and you, Mr. Chairman. And I was very pleased when our HUD director came before the Financial Services Committee, Biden's administration, just for the record, and talked about the $3.8 billion in CDBG, and also specifically said that their area of interest in housing included working in those underserved areas in cities, small towns, quote, rural areas. So I think we know where the Biden administration stands on that. My first question will go to you, Mr. Burt, and I want to make the connectivity to when we talk about housing, especially in the southern states, that we tie it to the racial wealth gap. And certainly we know that it's important to increase home ownership for Black Americans. And when we think about places like Mississippi and Tennessee and Arkansas, I noticed most of you talked about those southern states and talked about the percentage of poverty for the nation coming from those southern states in rural areas. The renowned Brian Stevenson said, the opposite of poverty is not wealth, but it's justice. So when I look at home ownership, I look at the disparities. I look at whether those are in Black communities, in urban or rural areas. Certainly we have a lot of our members who represent rural areas and also are members of the Congressional Black Caucus. So let me ask this question. Can you explain why median home values in Black communities are significantly lower than outside of the belt, and the effect that this has had on the racial wealth gap?
Yes, I can. Effectively, in the Deep South, this is the region that holds the Black Belt, these counties that are majority persons of color. It's not unusual to see that they have higher rates of home ownership in the region, given that a lot of the housing stock is actually passed down generation to generation. The issue is that because of historical challenges of, again, financial lending exclusion, redlining, and the lack of access to affordable financial mortgages, the quality of housing hasn't kept up with the pace of home ownership. So said more simply, is that Black communities that are in persistent poverty, rural counties, may have a house, but they don't have the capital, the access to capital to get renovations, or they don't have access to get capital to get the pull equity and increase their equity out of the same housing stock. So in short, what we see with home ownership, we actually see that it's really a function of the lack of affordable financial mortgages. And even beyond that, when we talk about persistent poverty counties, we realize that of the 158 counties that have an unbanked and underbanked rate, 1.5 times the national average, 75% of those counties are persistent poverty counties. Again, persistent poverty counties in our region are majority persons of color, and they're more likely to be rural. So what we see is an intersection of the compounding impact of the lack of investment into these communities. So it's affecting not only their ability to get a home mortgage or become a homeowner, but it's also—
I'm going to have to stop you because my clock is running out, but that was very helpful. Mr. George, kind of to segue from that, what do you think some of the things we can do to boost home ownership to loans in the southern Black Belt regions? And I say that because we know the small number of MDIs that we have, CDFIs. What are some of the things you think we can do?
Thank you, Congressman. Obviously, to reiterate the comment on access to capital is a major is a major strategy, and notably what we would call good capital, improve resources to USDA's Rural Development Service, so borrowers can get good quality loans and not access to subprime loans or chattel loans in many cases. The issue.
Thank you. My time has run out, but you can write me more if you'd like. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. The gentlewoman yields back. The chair now recognizes